Boys, girls, babes, welcome back to the Janae Talks Caps podcast. As always, thank you all so much for tuning in today. Just a very quick reminder, please don't forget to subscribe to our podcast if you haven't already. We are available now across pretty much all major platforms, those of course being Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, TuneIn, Podcast Addict, etc., etc., etc. And I just wanted to say that we really appreciate all of the interest and all of the love that we've been getting lately. It has been amazing. Every week it seems now our follower count is going up and up and up, just like our boy Ovechkin's goal totals. So again, thank you all so much for your continued support. We do really appreciate it so much. So now we have got a lot to get to today, and man, these Washington Capitals are fun to talk about lately, aren't they? Remember last season when Todd Reirden was the coach and everything pretty much sucked? Remember when talking about the Caps felt more like a chore than anything else? Well, last season feels so far behind us now, with Peter Laviolette, of course, at the helm now, and the Caps playing a brand of hockey that is much more reminiscent of the one that won them the Stanley Cup just a couple of seasons ago. So little bit of housekeeping here. Let's get you all up to date. The Caps, if you have somehow missed it, they are 17-3-1 over their last 21 games, which dates back to February 16th, which was when they beat the Penguins 3-1 in Pittsburgh to start this ridiculously dominant run. And when I say ridiculously dominant, I don't say that lightly. They really have been ridiculously dominant, not just in how many games they've won, but in the manners in which they've been winning those games. So we'll talk about that a little bit. And I told you I've got a little bit of housekeeping to give you here as far as stats. So here we go. So the Caps 17-3-1 record since February 16th is the best in the NHL over that span. And here's how they've been winning so many games. So during that span, their defense has gone from being one of the worst in the league to start the season to now being second in the entire NHL. That's both a product of how few shots and how few high danger chances they're allowing the opposition, and as well of how well both of their goaltenders are doing at stopping almost every shot that they see. So the Caps, they are allowing just 28.8 shots against per game. That's good for 9th in the NHL on the season. And remember, that number does include the first month or so of the season when they weren't used to Peter Laviolette's system yet, and the ghost of Todd Reirden was still lurking about Capital One Arena. So they've been much better since then, and allowing far fewer shots, far fewer than the 28.8 average for the season. And so that massive improvement means that number just continues to come down with the more games that the Caps play this way and play this stout brand of defense. And like I mentioned, their goalies are also doing one hell of a job of stopping the puck. Both Ilya Samsonov and Vitek Vanacek, just 24 and 25 years of age, respectively. Samsonov, he just turned 24 last month, and I think I forgot to mention it on here. So a happy belated birthday to him. And Vanacek, he just turned 25 back in January. But anyway, so like two young goalies. Samsonov, he played last season in Washington as Braden Holtby's backup, and he had sparkling numbers last season as a rookie. Vanacek has sparkling numbers as a rookie this season and should probably be getting some major consideration for the Calder Trophy. He is leading all rookies in wins after all. But yeah, anyway, like both of them have been stellar. We really can't ask really for anything more from them at this point. And as much as I loved and do love Braden Holtby, the Caps goaltending has been better this season than it was last season, and that's a fact. And it's a fact that Washington's division rivals were probably hoping would not be the case. They were probably hoping that, these young guys were going to, look their age maybe, but they don't. They look calm, confident. They look like veterans out there, really. You'd never know that they have a combined 60 games of NHL experience. And most of those 60 games of experience have been wins for both of them, by the way. As Samsonov, he went 16-6-2 in his rookie season last season. He's 8-1-1 so far this season, despite spending a large chunk of time out of the lineup with COVID-19. He's come back and been on fire. He has like a 93 save percentage since coming off of the COVID list. And he has a sparkling goals against average as well, of 2.39 on the season. So for Samsonov, first of all, I think we all know, even if we don't know firsthand, we've heard from others, what he's done here coming back from COVID-19, that's hard to do. He even has mentioned and talked about it in his interviews a little bit, how hard that has been on him and was on him. He's recovering now, obviously, but, he said, it was really difficult. He couldn't breathe. He couldn't walk. He couldn't really do anything. And the symptoms kind of lingered for quite a while. Even after, he did start to get better and to where he could be at least back at the rink and back on the ice, back playing games. It took him a while to get back to feeling good again. And now, obviously, he's getting his conditioning back, and he looks great. So, big props to him. I'm sure that is not easy to do, what he's done so far this season. So, just wanted to kind of throw that out there, that we really are, impressed with what he's been able to do. And Vanacek, in his rookie season, he's 14-5-3, leading all rookies in wins, as I mentioned, a 2.67 goals against average and a 910 save percentage. So yeah, they have both been phenomenal in the Capitals' net. And the Caps do have veteran Craig Anderson available as well, who they signed after fellow veteran Henrik Lundqvist had to be put on long-term injured reserve. Anderson is just chilling really on the taxi squad right now. The Caps haven't really had to use him, but he's ready and waiting if needed. But yeah, with the way that the two young guys are playing, it's certainly looking like they're probably not going to need him. But it's nice to know that he's there anyway. And yeah, I heard the NBC broadcast say during the Capitals-Rangers game yesterday that the Caps probably have the best young goalie tandem in the entire NHL. And I know it's not very often that an NBC broadcast says something smart, but I definitely do agree with them here. The Caps goaltending, obviously, we know that they're young, but they're not playing like it. Great young tandem right now for the Caps. So we've talked about the defense. We've talked about the goaltending. And of course, another big part of why the Caps are winning so many games has been the always vaunted Washington Capitals offense. But that's just kind of something that we've come to expect during the Alex Ovechkin, Nicklas Backstrom era of Capitals hockey, right? We're just kind of so used to it and so spoiled by it that I think that we just kind of expect it to always be that way, because it has been that way for 15 years now. But all I'm saying is let's not ever take it for granted, okay? We have it pretty good here in Washington. So anyways, the Caps are scoring a bazillion goals this season again, just like last season. And the one before that, and the one before that, and the one before that, and the one before that. You get the point. They are second in the entire NHL in scoring overall, but even more importantly, and I say more importantly because this is what I always look at especially hard, because it is proven to be a hugely accurate predictor of playoff success, which is what we all care about the most, right? Obviously, that goes without saying. But yeah, I always look at 5-on-5 scoring, even strength scoring, because that's what really matters come playoff time when a lot of the power play opportunities dry up. Of course, the Capitals have barely had a power play opportunity all season long, so that'll be nothing new for them. But yeah, 5-on-5 scoring, very important. And when you look at even strength scoring, the Caps are number 1 in the entire NHL, and it's not even close. When I last checked, they were scoring an average of more than 3 even strength goals per game, and that was before they popped 5 at even strength on the New York Rangers yesterday. So yeah, the Caps are the only team in the NHL that is averaging more than 3 even strength goals per game this season. Their power play is also great, top 10 in the NHL, in fact. But like I said, they don't get to use it much because the referees hate them, or at least it feels that way. A team that has the puck this much, has this much puck possession, generates this many chances, etc., should be getting a lot more power plays than what the Caps have been given. That's all I'm saying. The Caps are currently 29th out of 31 teams in the entire league in terms of how many power plays they've been given. And yet they sit second in the entire NHL in scoring overall. Okie dokie. Like I said, this team is lit at 5-on-5, and they have to be with how little power play time they get. So anyways, a big part of why the Caps are so great at 5-on-5 is that their captain, Alex Ovechkin, you may have heard of him, he is pretty fucking fantastic at 5-on-5. Yes, of course, we all know what a weapon he is on the power play if the Caps were ever to get any power plays. But he has been so good at even strength again this season. He is leading the entire NHL in even strength goals, despite playing fewer games than most guys up to this point due to that time that he spent on the NHL's COVID list. Austin Matthews is still leading the league in goals for now, although with the way that Ovi is going, it's looking like that won't last long. But Matthews has more goals on the power play, as the Leafs simply get more power plays. And something else that I thought was interesting as well is that these young guys like Matthews, like Connor McDavid, they're playing roughly 2 minutes more per game than Ovechkin is in terms of ice time. So Ovi, he is still above 20 minutes per game, even at age 35. We know what a beast he is. He's an absolute machine. But yeah, like Matthews, McDavid, these guys are playing roughly 2 minutes more per game than Ovi is, and yet here Ovi is catching them in the goal-scoring race. So it's rather hilarious and oh so predictable at this point if you are a Caps fan who has seen this story play out over and over and over again, season after season. Every season, there's some poor bastard or bastards who come out of the gate hot with a hot start, and every season they think that a hot start means that they are winning the Rocket Richard Trophy. And then every season in the second half, here comes Alexander the Great appropriately flying up like a rocket ship to surpass them all and snag that Rocket Richard Trophy once again. It's so predictable, like I said, and yet for some reason these Leafs fans still don't seem to get it. But hey, they're still planning a parade every year for a team that hasn't won a single playoff series in almost 2 full decades. So if I'm being frank, I think there's probably a lot that they don't get. Anyways, Alex Ovechkin, 11 goals in the last 11 games. And I think I heard Sportsnet saying that Austin Matthews has 3 goals over his last 12 games. So that certainly explains why Ovi is gaining ground so quickly. And please, Leafs fans, I just want to get this in there as well. Don't give me the crap about Matthews being injured and that's why he's not scoring. Like, if he's good enough to play, he's good enough to score. And Alex Ovechkin has been playing injured for most of this season, by the way, as well. He keeps having to take maintenance days for a lower body injury. They're calling him day-to-day and or game-time decision all of the time. And yet he still comes out and plays every game, and he still scores virtually every game too. So please, don't give me that crap. Toughen up, Buttercup. But yeah, I mean, like I said, it's like clockwork every season. Ovechkin turns it on when the pressure gets cranked up, and the brighter that the spotlight shines, all of these other guys seem to kind of fade away, right? Like, if I remember correctly, David Pastrnak had a 12-goal lead on Ovechkin at one point last season, and we know how that ended with another Rocket Richard Trophy for Ovechkin. And same thing this season. I think Matthews was literally like 15 goals ahead of him at one point, and now Ovi is just 4 behind and closing quickly. They're going to have to rename the fucking thing the Alex Ovechkin trophy, honestly. It doesn't make much sense to leave it named the Rocket Richard trophy once Ovechkin eventually retires. He's won the bloody thing 9 times already, maybe 10 after this season. And that's already an NHL record, by the way. 9 seasons leading the NHL in goals. Before Ovechkin, the most seasons any one guy had led the league in goals was 7. And that was, of course, the great Bobby Hull. Maurice Rocket Richard, for reference, and whom the trophy is currently named after, he led the league in goals 5 seasons over his career, as did Wayne Gretzky and as did Gordie Howe. So that's just to kind of, give you some perspective as to just how dominant Alex Ovechkin actually has been and is. He's probably about to double that number put forth by those guys. So yeah, he's pretty good. Ovechkin's also got the highest goals per game rate of any of the 8 players in NHL history who have scored 700 plus goals, which I thought was pretty cool. And yes, Ovechkin's is even higher than Wayne Gretzky's. Gretzky is number 2 behind Alex Ovechkin. And this is, of course, relevant right now because Ovechkin is rapidly climbing the NHL's all-time goals list. He scored number 724 against the New York Rangers yesterday, which means that he is now just 7 goals behind Marcel Dion to get into the top 5 of all time in NHL history. That is pretty incredible. Never mind the fact that he's probably still going to play 5 more seasons, or the fact that he's still scoring at a 50-plus goal pace over a full season. Never mind those things. But as we know, he's already in the top 5 of all time in a number of categories in NHL history, including power play goals, where he's currently 3rd all time, and he needs just 1 more power play goal to move into 2nd all time. And he actually needs just 10 more power play goals to move into 1st place in NHL history. So obviously, shortened season this year, but I would say that he'll get it next season for sure. And game-winning goals, which is obviously a hugely important category because that's the clutch factor that everyone talks about. He's already 4th all time in the NHL record books, and he is just 2 game winners away from being 3rd all time, and just 4 game winners away from being 2nd all time, a spot that is currently occupied by the great Gordie Howe, aka Mr. Hockey. So it might surprise you as well to learn that Wayne Gretzky is actually all the way down at 20th place all time in terms of game winners. You actually have to scroll all the way to the 2nd page in order to find him, so I thought that was kind of funny. But anyways, Ovechkin is already the NHL's all-time leader in overtime goals as well, which is obviously the ultimate clutch. So you get what I'm saying. The dude is good at hockey. The dude is clutch. He's also already 2nd all-time in NHL history for goals on the road, with 366 of them currently. So I find that to be a very interesting and telling stat, because whereas a lot of these guys, Austin Matthews, make a living out of scoring goals at home, where you have the last change and therefore where the matchups are the easiest. And then you have a guy like Alex Ovechkin who goes on the road and doesn't slow down even a little bit. He scores just as much in opposition barns where the other teams are line matching the hell out of him and giving him the toughest matchups. He seems to thrive on that. He loves the challenge, loves the competition. He's got to be a total psychopath, right? I love it. So anyways, 2nd all time in road goals. Wayne Gretzky is currently number 1. Ovi needs just 36 more goals on the road in order to catch him and become the number 1 all time. And by the way, Ovi, like I said, is just 36 goals behind Gretzky right now, and he's done that in 151 fewer road games so far than what Gretzky played in his career in order to get to that number of goals. So just ridiculous. 8 is great. And anyways, I know we all love Ovechkin's stats. We can never have too many of them. It's just so much fun seeing where he stacks up already with so much time still left to go in his career. It's almost like an addiction, right? You could just peer over Ovechkin stats all day long if your bosses wouldn't fire you, right? It's a lot of fun to look into these things. But anyways, the big man, like I said, has been clutch as always, 3rd in the entire NHL in game-winning goals this season. he's scoring a lot. He's also making a ton of great defensive plays as well, and as is the whole team, by the way. And the Caps, like I said, are winning a ton of hockey games because of all of these factors. It is fun to be a fan of these Washington Capitals right now. Okay, and now it is time for our Onside Offside segment. Hopefully you guys are starting to get the hang of it by now, but if you haven't heard it yet, if you missed last week's episode or the one before that for some reason, first of all, what are you doing with your life? Subscribe. Make sure that you get the episodes as soon as they come out. Onside Offside, it's a new segment that we've put together. So basically how it works, you guys, our listeners, you send us different things that you want answered, like from not just about the Caps, but anywhere around the league, any team, any player, anything. So it can be like I said, things about other teams, the standings, things about certain individual players, awards races, things like that. It can be something that happens during a game, whether it's like a controversial hit, something that happens after a game, whether it's discipline or non-discipline that's doled out by the league, comments made by a coach or by a player, whatever. So you send us whatever it is that you want talked about, any questions that you have, and we will, first of all, read it out on air, and second of all, answer you with whether we think that this is onside or offside. So onside, of course, being that we agree with whatever it is, offside being that we do not agree and sometimes strongly do not agree with whatever it is. So you can send us your questions for Onside Offside either via email to JaneaTalksCaps@gmail.com. Again, that's JaneaTalksCaps@gmail.com, or you can get in touch with us via social media. So that would be, of course, like through our Facebook page. It's under Janea Talks Caps, or on our Twitter, our Instagram, whatever it may be. We're everywhere. So you can get a hold of us on there as well. So send us your questions for Onside Offside. And for today, first up, we've got some good ones here. So first up, we've got Kyla, who writes in from Buffalo. God, I can only imagine what this is going to be, because that means that she is probably a Sabres fan. God bless her soul. And she asks, hey, Janea, onside or offside, these Sabres are the worst team that the NHL has ever seen. Well, Kyla, it is a fair question. It's certainly a fair question. This is a really bad hockey team, right? Like, it's maybe not fair for us to refer to them as an NHL team at this point, though they do still play in the NHL, though they don't do so competitively. But yeah, they're really far more of a minor league quality team at this point. If you put them in the AHL with the attitudes that these guys have right now, I'm not so sure that they would even win too many games down there. But yeah, the numbers speak for themselves, right? And don't get me wrong, there has been some really bad teams in NHL history. Many of them expansion teams. But that's kind of the problem for the Buffalo Sabres right now, right? Like, they are not an expansion team. They've been in this league already for over 50 freaking years. Since 1970, they've been in the NHL. So it's like, what's your excuse at this point? They've never won the Stanley Cup. They, along with the Vancouver Canucks, have the longest active drought without ever winning the Stanley Cup at 51 years now and counting. And I live in Vancouver as well, so I can tell you that really goes over really well here as well. And I know Buffalo has very passionate fans. It's a great hockey town. The fans in Buffalo deserve a lot better than this. I've said that many times and on many different occasions. But it's a joke right now in Buffalo. They haven't made the playoffs even in a decade. And that as well is the longest active drought in the NHL in that department too. So they've been through multiple coaching staffs, multiple GMs. They fired literally everybody who worked for them before this season started. That hasn't made a difference either. Things have only gotten worse really in Buffalo, which we really didn't think was even possible. So yeah, I think when you look at the totality of the circumstances here, like the fact that they've never, there's never been a Stanley Cup in Buffalo in 51 years and counting, the fact that there's been no playoff appearances for a decade now, the fact that they seem to have a 10-plus game losing streak every season these days, and their losing streak right now is an NHL record in the shootout era, because theoretically it should be easier to find a win somewhere when you can win via a shootout. Like even a blind squirrel finds a nut once in a while, right? But they can't even do that. They can't even find the nut. And so they've lost 17 straight games now, which, like I said, is an NHL record during the shootout era. So I think you are on side with this one, Kyla. And like I said, there have been some brutally bad teams in NHL history to compare them to, if you wanted to. One of them was my own Washington Capitals in the 1974-1975 season. Thank God I was not allowed to see that. But they lost 17 games in a row at one point as well. And so these Sabres have matched that now. But also, like I said, many of those super bad teams were expansion teams. My Washington Capitals in 1974-1975 were an expansion team. They had just entered the league in that 1974-75 season. So it's really not a fair comparison, if we want to be honest. These Buffalo Sabres have had 51 years to figure their shit out. And as well, I mean, when you look at the numbers during this losing streak, like I said, the way that the Sabres are losing games right now is just pathetic. Like, it's not as if they're playing well, putting forth a good effort and just can't catch a break. No, there's no effort. There's no effort at all. They're heavily outshot in almost every single game that they play. They've been shut out more times than they've won a game this season. Did you know that? They've been shut out 7 times and they've only won 6 games. That's got to be some type of record of futility. Their big off-season acquisition, Taylor Hall, he's got 2 goals on the season. 2 goals. Tom Wilson, who I keep hearing is just a goon, he matched Taylor Hall's season goal total in a single period yesterday. He makes a few $1 million less per season against the salary cap than Taylor Hall does as well. So the entire top line for the Sabres, Jack Eichel included, by the way, they have been awful. Awful. There's no sugarcoating it here. Jeff Skinner makes $9 million a season. He's got 3 goals. Jack Eichel makes $10 million a season. He's got 2 goals. So on your top line, you're paying these guys a combined $27 million a season, or exactly 1/3 of your salary cap for the mathematicians out there, to give you a combined 7 goals. So just for comparison's sake, like my Capitals, they're in first place, right? They have got 7 guys in their lineup right now who have at least 7 goals. So 7 players individually who are outscoring the Buffalo Sabres' entire $27 million top line. So it's not hard to see why one team would be in first place and the other would be mired in a 17-game losing streak. It's just terrible cap management by the entire Buffalo Sabres organization. Jack Eichel has a larger cap hit than Alex Ovechkin. Ovi, of course, is 35 years old, and he's got 18 goals already. He'd be on pace for over 50 goals again over a full season, and he's playing injured to boot. So, where's the excuse for Eichel and for the rest of these guys? Like Jeff Skinner, his cap hit is only $500,000 less than Alex Ovechkin's. Taylor Hall, $1.5 million less than Ovechkin's. We're paying Ovechkin 1/3 of what the Sabres top line makes, and he's producing 3 times as much as the Sabres entire top line is, all by himself. And I know Alex Ovechkin is Alex Ovechkin, and so you're probably thinking it's really easy for me as a fan of the Washington Capitals to think this way, because we've been so utterly spoiled by having Alex Ovechkin all of these years. And I know that we're spoiled. And so you're probably thinking, well, okay, but not everyone has an Alex Ovechkin, right? No one else has an Alex Ovechkin. And I realize that, but my point is that it's just not hard to see where things have gone wrong for the Buffalo Sabres, just when you look at what they're paying these players and what they're producing. But at the same time, don't get me wrong here, it's not all management's fault. Yes, management hands out those contracts, but this is on a lot of different people it's a lot of different people's faults. The players have to take a lot of responsibility here too, because like I said, they've been through numerous coaching staffs now, different GMs, different everything in virtually every position in the front office now. So at what point is it on the players? For me, I would say that point started a while ago, actually. These guys, they have to start taking some responsibility. You can't just whine for a trade every time things aren't going your way and expect that that's going to fix everything. You have to fix yourself first, right? Like, how many teams has Taylor Hall played on now? This guy is a former number 1 overall pick, for crying out loud. How many teams has he been on where he's helped them be so bad that they win the draft lottery versus helping a team to make the playoffs? What's the ratio there for Taylor Hall? I'll give you a hint. It's not good. It's not pretty. He's not a guy that you pick up if you want to win any meaningful hockey games. That's all I'll say. And I honestly don't get why Jack Eichel gets a free pass from so many people either. I mean, I know he's injured right now, and so he's not in the lineup right now. But he was in the lineup for a large chunk of this losing streak. He was healthy through the beginning of the season and through the beginning of all of this. He's played 21 games and he has 2 goals. So he was around for a lot of this losing streak, and he didn't do a damn thing to pull his team out of it. He's the captain, right? And then, of course, he gets injured now, which is probably honestly good timing for him, at least, because he can, as we're seeing, escape some of the blame for all of this. But he really shouldn't, in my opinion. Like I said, he was in the lineup for a lot of it, for a lot of this losing streak. Like I said, he's played 21 games, 2 goals, so he'd be on pace for 8 goals over a full 82-game season. It's just not good enough. So I don't get it. I don't get why he gets a free pass from so many people. But yeah, anyways, Kyla, like I said, I think you are on side with this one. The Sabres, as a team, as an organization, are just pathetic right now, and really for quite a long time now. So I know I'm getting pretty fired up about this one. I'm getting kind of passionate about it. You might think even that I were a Buffalo Sabres fan listening to me, but I just get fired up about it because I know how passionate the Buffalo Sabres fans are. Same way that I'm passionate about my Washington Capitals, and I just can't imagine if it was my team. If it was my team that was playing this way, I can't imagine it. So I feel for you guys. I feel your pain. And thank you, Kyla, for writing in. And thank you very much for listening to our show as well. Okay, so next up we've got Alan, who writes in, and he asks, Tim Peel relieved of his duties. Onside? Offside? Did the league handle this properly? Well, so great question, Alan. And I know a lot of people have been wondering about this one as well. So I was hoping that someone would ask it for our Onside Offside segment. Okay, so I will start by saying that it's possible that I'm a little bit biased because I never thought Tim Peel was a very good referee to begin with. I used to kind of roll my eyes whenever I'd see his name on the game card for a Caps game because you just knew it was going to be a total shit show. He just seemed to always make a lot of ridiculous calls, ridiculous non-calls, and things could tend to get very one-sided at times as well. And for what it's worth, it's apparently not just me who thought this way, as there is a reason why he was never officiating in the later rounds of the Stanley Cup playoffs. There is a reason for that. So that's all I will say on that. I'll just leave it at that. I don't want to kick a guy while he's down. Obviously, he's just been given the axe by the league. But yeah, so for those who don't know what happened or who missed it, longtime NHL referee Tim Peel was relieved of his duties by the NHL after being caught on a hot mic last week during a game between the Nashville Predators and the Detroit Red Wings, saying that he wanted to call a penalty on the Predators early on in the period for some reason. Wanted to. So the mic was picked up by accident by the TV broadcast as they started to go to commercial. So here, these were Peel's exact words on the hot mic. So he says, and I quote, "It wasn't much, but I wanted to get a fucking penalty against Nashville early in the..." and then it cuts out. So I'm assuming that he was about to say early on in the period, as the second period had just started, but we'll never know for sure, as the broadcast had quickly realized what was happening and had cut to commercial, cutting off the end of Peel's sentence. So yeah, I mean, the it wasn't much part, he's referring to the penalty that he had just called on Predators forward Victor Arvidsson, which can only be described as extremely weak at best. It should not have been called a penalty. Let's just leave it at that. So anyways, Alan, I do think that the NHL is onside here as far as relieving Tim Peel of his duties, and there's a couple of reasons why I'm saying that. So I'll explain myself a little bit. So first of all, yes, these guys, these referees, they are human, right? And I've seen a lot of people using that as a justification for what Tim Peel did here. They say that they're human, they're going to have emotion take over sometimes. But to that, I say, bullshit. Bullshit. These guys are human, yes, but they were paid a ton of money to officiate these games and to do so in what's supposed to be a non-biased and totally objective manner. And Tim Peel did not do that here, not even close. And honestly, like, if we see, that this is caught by pure stupid luck, really, on a hot mic this one time, then how many times do we think that something similar to this is going on in a game, but there's just no hot mic around at the time to pick it up and accidentally broadcast it to all of us? Like, I guarantee you that this is happening all of the time across the NHL. There's a reason why sometimes it seems like games are called very one-sided, or like an obvious penalty isn't called, maybe because the ref feels that team has already hit their quota that he's allowing to them as far as power plays in that game, or maybe it's because the team being fouled is already on the power play and he doesn't want to do, a 5-on-3 situation. And the reverse is true as well. A lot of times there's ticky-tack calls that are made just for the sake of giving a team a power play for no reason other than that you feel that you should. So we know that this happens. We see it with our own eyes, and we see it frequently. It's just that now we know for a fact that it's not all in our heads, right? Tim Peel's hot mic gave us that confirmation, gave us that validation. This is happening. And it's a big problem because this is not the way that these games are supposed to be officiated, right? Or at least it's not the way that we're told that they're supposed to be officiated. What the league actually wants behind closed doors, behind the scenes, is maybe up for debate. So it's possible, I think it's possible, that Tim Peel was actually calling the game exactly the way that the league wants these games to be called. And he was just, stupid enough to say it out loud and get caught. And even in that case, I would still say, even though I don't like it, I would still say that the league is still onside with relieving him of his duties. Even if he was following their orders, because when he's stupid enough to say it out loud with a mic nearby, at that point, like, what choice does the NHL really have? How bad would it have looked if they kept him on? So even if it were morally kind of wrong, I think they still would have had to relieve him of his duties, just purely for the sake of protecting their image. It is a business after all, right or wrong. Like I said, I don't necessarily like it. I think morally, you're kind of on the wrong side there, but it is a business and I get that part of it. But that's the second part to my answer here as well. Like I told you that there were two things that made relieving him of his duties the thing that had to be done. And so the second thing is that the NHL, professional sports in general, they're all kind of getting a lot more into gambling now, into sports betting, right? So if you're having real people betting real money that they worked real hours for, and they're betting that money on these games, then you can't have an incident like the NHL had last week with Tim Peel. You just can't. You can't have it looking like the game might be being manipulated in any way, even if it was truly just innocent and not related to gambling at all, which I'm not suggesting that in this case, in Tim Peel's case, not at all. But that doesn't matter. Like, even if it was truly just innocent, it doesn't matter. What matters is what it looks like. What matters is how people can interpret it. So you can't even have it looking like that could be the case. You just can't. So I think that they had to get rid of him. They had to relieve him of his duties. And I think that they didn't really have a choice. And so I think that they are on side with this one, Alan. Thank you very much for the question. And so I'll just leave you with this as well. All of my fellow Caps fans, because we're talking about the officiating, talking about Tim Peel and what's going on and all of this. And so if we hear Tim Peel saying this on a hot mic last week, let me just pose the question to you. How many times do you think there's been where a referee has said something along the lines of, oh, it wasn't much, but it was Tom Wilson, so I had to call a fucking penalty on him? How many times? How many times do you think that that's been a conversation that's been had on the ice or in the referee's locker room or at the pub after the game? My guess is a lot of times. So like I said, Alan, thank you very much for the question. It was a great question. That's going to have to conclude our onside offside segment for today, and conclude our podcast for today as well, as we're out of time. But thank you again, Alan, for that great question to wrap things up. Hopefully I answered it well and did a good job of explaining my reasoning behind my answer as well. So thank you, Alan. And thank you, Kyla, as well, who gave us our first question. That was a great one as well. And thank you to everyone else who sent in questions for Onside Offside this week. We will get to more of them next time, I promise. We always try to get to as many as we can, but sometimes, we just run out of time. So again, you can send us your questions for Onside Offside via email to JanaeaTalksCaps@gmail.com. Again, that's JanaeaTalksCaps@gmail.com. Or you can connect with us, like I said, through social media, our Facebook page, our Twitter, our Instagram, whatever. We're on all of those things. We are everywhere. And I wanted to mention as well, we will not have an episode next Monday because it is Easter Monday. It's a holiday and I will be out of town spending some time with my family, which will be very nice. I'm looking forward to it. But we will be back again the week after, so don't worry. So as always, thank you all very much for listening. We really appreciate you. And again, I know I mentioned it at the top of the episode, but do make sure to subscribe to our podcast if you haven't already. We are available on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, on Google Podcasts, on iHeartRadio, on Stitcher, on TuneIn, on Podcast Addict, etc., etc., etc. So pretty much anywhere and everywhere that you would get your podcast from, we are on there. So subscribe, share us with your friends, your family, your fellow Caps fans, your fellow hockey fans in general, and we will talk some hockey. Until next time, Caps fans, you stay classy, stay healthy, stay safe, and as always, let's go Caps.